Good afternoon, this is Marco Mongan coming out of Thailand, reporting with radio station. Today, I have 3 of the top stories from the news coming out of Thailand for you. Without further much ado, let's get into one of our top stories from today. 3 million COVID-19 infections in Thailand since 2020. Mental health plummets. Yesterday, Thailand's number of COVID-19 infections since the pandemic hit the country in 2020 jumped to 3 million. There have been 781,371 infections since January 1st. Out of those infections, there have been 1,478 deaths and 589,997 recoveries. Thailand's Department of Mental Health has also reported the drastic impact of COVID-19 on mental health. DMH's Director General told the Bangkok Post the suicide rate in Thailand is 5.9 times what it was in pre-COVID days. The department's data found that people are 2.1 times more likely to develop stress and 4.8 times more likely to develop depression than they were pre-pandemic. The Director General said one factor in the plummeting mental health is the slow spread of the Omicron variant, preventing progress on the situation. He said the DMH plans a new service. He said that in some cases, people have committed suicide when their business stopped making profit due to government closures and restrictions in reaction to the COVID-19 situation. In one tragic incident, a couple in Chonburi hung themselves in their home after loan sharks threatened them. The husband and wife both worked as food vendors, and COVID-19 restrictions as well as a lack of customers hit their profits hard. The couple had 2 children. A study by UNICEF from January 2020 to September 2021 found that 28% of Thai adolescents experienced high levels of stress, 32% risked depression, and 22% were at the risk of suicide. Around the world, the number of people dying because of COVID-19 has now surpassed 6 million, nearly 1/6 of those in the US alone. Speaking on more COVID-19 related news, our next article relates to the vaccinated travel lanes between Thailand, Malaysia, and Cambodia, starting March 15th. A network of new vaccinated travel lanes is starting to open up around Southeast Asia as the governments find safe ways to reopen their borders while still maintaining some precautions. The Omicron variant continues to surge in many of the regional Asian countries, despite similar surges and declines already over in many countries in the EU, the US, UK, and Australia. The newly announced VTLs still fall well short of the pre-COVID freedoms of visas on arrival and no pre-approvals for arrival and destination countries. Still, the new VTLs and recently announced travel bubbles are a lurch forward as much of Asia starts to reopen to international travel. Arrival procedures will differ between the various VTL destination countries, and you should check your travel destination for details relating to and your country of origin before booking tickets. Also, these announcements may be superseded by more recent details in coming days, so check the latest news about travel to your chosen destination before booking. Also, check all arrival procedures for your return journey. Now, new air vaccinated travel lanes will involve Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia that are set to go into effect from March 15th in joint efforts to reopen their international borders. Malaysia's Transport Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Wee Ka Siong says that the key opportunity for travelers using the vaccinated travel lanes is that these people won't be required to quarantine when they arrive in their new destination. Quote, "These routes are expected to aid our mutual economic recovery from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in reviving the ailing tourism industry," end quote. In reciprocal arrangements, the partnering governments will be scheduling up to 6 flights daily. In the case of the Malaysian-Thailand arrangement, it will allow 6 flights between KL and Bangkok, and 4 flights between KL and Phuket. He added that the 2 sides could agree to add additional flights if the demands increased. For the Cambodian VTL, there would be at least 2 daily flights between KL and Phnom Penh. Other ASEAN governments are also looking to facilitate VTL routes where travelers from each country won't be required to quarantine at either end, but a pre-flight PCR test and full vaccination will be required for travelers under the program. Malaysia currently has both air and land vaccinated travel lanes with Singapore. And from March 4th, Singapore Airlines started operating vaccinated travel lane flights from Phuket to Singapore. Vaccinated travelers who meet the criteria are allowed to arrive in Singapore quarantine-free. There are 2 flights daily with Singapore Airlines, all designated as VTL flights. SIA says that flights will increase from 3 flights daily to 4 flights daily from the 27th of March 2022 to April 2022. SIA already has a VTL service between Bangkok and Singapore since February 1st. 3 flights daily are designated as VTL flights between Suvarnabhumi and Changi airports. This week, a travel bubble was approved between Thailand and India. With this arrangement, Indian and Thai airlines are now permitted to operate flights between both countries, but only for selected travelers. Here are the rules for traveling from India to Thailand. Number 1. You must be a national or a resident of Thailand. Number 2, any Indian national or national of Nepal or Bhutan traveling to Thailand and holding a valid visa of Thailand. The airlines must ensure that all the passengers meet the requirement for entry before issuance of tickets, boarding passes to the passengers. Number 3, foreign nationals holding a valid visa for Thailand. So these are the 3 that are allowed from India to Thailand. Now, if you are traveling from Thailand to India, number 1, Indian nationals or nationals of Nepal or Bhutan in Thailand. Number 2, all overseas citizens of India cardholders and person of Indian origin cardholders holding passports of any country. And number 3, nationals of Thailand and foreign nations holding a valid Indian visa as per extant guidelines. The airlines must ensure that all the passengers meet the requirement for entry before issuance of tickets or boarding passes to the passengers. Passengers traveling on flights from India to Thailand should only be heading to Thailand as their end destination. Similarly, only passengers originating from Thailand should be allowed to travel on flights from Thailand to India. Flights between the 2 countries are being hammered out at this time. And our last story for today, touching a little more on some news from yesterday. Russian embassy warns Thais, quote, "Don't fight with Ukrainians," end quote, threatens prosecution. Yesterday, the embassy of Russia in Bangkok posted on Facebook urging Thais not to join the Ukrainian military. The post was originally in Russian, but viewers can see a translated version in English. The embassy alleges that under international law, such mercenaries who join Ukrainian forces are not qualified as combatants and have no status as prisoners of war. It says the best case scenario for them is detention and prosecution. Below here we have the translated Facebook message from the Embassy of Russia. Quote, "In social networks and media, materials with calls on the leadership of Ukraine to join the so-called international volunteer troops and take part in combat operations on the side of the Ukrainian armed forces. In particular, relevant information is posted on social networks of the Embassy of Ukraine in Thailand. In this regard, the Ministry of Defense of Russia warned that in accordance with international humanitarian laws, foreign mercenaries are not combatants and have no right to the status of prisoners of war. At best, they are facing criminal justice. The Ministry of Defense has warned against participating in such actions." Social networks and the media spread the materials with appeals of the leadership of Ukraine to join the so-called international volunteer units and take part in hostilities on the side of the Ukrainian armed forces. In particular, such information is posted by the account of the Ukrainian embassy in Thailand. In this regard, the Russian Defense Ministry has warned that according to international humanitarian law, international mercenaries are not qualified as combatants and can have no status of prisoners of war. Thais with military experience have signed up to fight with Ukrainian forces, though it's unclear exactly how many. Some of them cite a sense of duty to stand up for a small country against a big country invading it. Quote, I hate to see strong people harassing weak ones. I am ready to quit as a volunteer ranger and fly to Ukraine if I am recruited to join the fight. End quote. This news comes a week after the Ukrainian president posted an appeal to foreigners to come to the Ukraine to help its forces fight Russia's military invasion. And those are our top 3 news stories coming out of Thailand for today. I do hope you enjoyed them. This is Marco Mongan coming out of TV station, radio station, internet station. Honestly, I'm coming out of here on my own. If you are looking for a news broadcaster, if you are looking for a voice, if you are looking for someone to narrate, I am here. I am ready. All you need to do is give me a call. Thank you very much. I hope to get in contact with you soon.